Ireland. Last night, the Prime Minister talked to President von der Leyen, the President of the European Commission, and made clear that we need to have the contracts that have been entered into honoured properly, and it was made clear that that supply would not be interrupted, so we can proceed with our plans and make sure that our so far highly successful vaccination programme can continue.
But what about that point specifically? Why not start injecting those who've had the first Pfizer jab with the second one now? There seems to be some doubt about supply.
We're confident. We have assurances that the supply that we have procured, the supply that we have paid for, is going to be delivered. That's why we are carrying on with our programme, and I'm working with ministers across the United Kingdom in order to make sure that we can accelerate the rollout of that vaccine programme to make sure that there are more jabs in more arms, exactly as we've planned.
How do you see the government's relationship now with the European Union going forward? Has it been soured by this?
Well, I think the European Union recognised that they made a mistake in triggering Article 16, which would have meant the reimposition of a border on the island of Ireland. But now the European Union have stepped back, and they've stepped back following clear conversations that the Prime Minister has had with the European Commission President, and I've had with the European Commission Vice President. They recognise that they have made a mistake, and I believe that we can now concentrate on making sure that our vaccine programme is successful, and also that we can resolve the issues in Northern Ireland that have been such a concern to the people of Northern Ireland.
You talk about the European Union making a mistake. Does the UK feel it's got the upper hand now?
No, we want to work with our friends and neighbours in the European Union. We recognise some of the difficulties and the pressures that they face. But the decision yesterday to trigger Article 16 to, in effect, see the reimposition of a border on the island of Ireland, that was a mistake. That's been acknowledged. Now we can move on, and we can ensure that the issues which the people of Northern Ireland are legitimately concerned about can be addressed. I've spoken to the European Commission Vice President Maroš Šefčovič about this, and we've both agreed that we need a reset, that we need to put the people of Northern Ireland first.
You talked about supply, and you're confident about supply. Was the Prime Minister reassured when he spoke to Ursula von der Leyen about vaccine supplies? Did she give assurances about, for example, a demand to divert AstraZeneca vaccines to the European Union?
The Prime Minister was very clear. We've entered into contractual arrangements with AstraZeneca and Pfizer. We expect those arrangements to be honoured, and President von der Leyen was clear that she understood exactly the UK government's position, so we expect that those contracts will be honoured. We expect that vaccines will continue to be supplied. The UK government's position is absolutely clear. We expect companies and contracts to be honoured. The European Union know that, and of course we'll work with them in order to make sure that their own problems can be tackled, because, as I say, our first priority is vaccinating people in the United Kingdom, but we also want to work with our friends and neighbours in the European Union in order to help them as well.
If you're confident about supply then, and no interruption, how confident are you that the government will meet the target of 15 million vaccinations by the middle of February, the 15th of February?
We're fully on course to meet the target of 15 million vaccinations by the middle of February. That means that the four most vulnerable cohorts will have been vaccinated, and that we will then go on to make sure that the 9 most vulnerable cohorts, which have been identified by the Joint Committee on Vaccination and Inoculation, are also vaccinated as well. It's really important that this programme across the United Kingdom is not interrupted. It's vital to the nation's health and to our prospects of economic recovery. And under the leadership of Matt Hancock and Kate Bingham and the Prime Minister, Alok Sharma and Kwasi Kwarteng, that campaign is succeeding.
How concerned are you about the European Union using Article 16, which I think you'd probably agree is supposed to be a last resort, isn't it? How concerned are you about them using Article 16? Does this lower the bar for using Article 16? Philip Rycroft, a former civil servant from the Brexit department, has suggested that it might.
Well, I think the European Union recognise now that they made a mistake yesterday. The Commission made a mistake. They didn't consult us, they didn't consult our friends in Dublin, and they united parties in Northern Ireland, from Sinn Féin on one side to the DUP on the other, in condemnation. And people in Northern Ireland were bewildered by this step. Now, the Commission have stepped back. And I've talked to the Commission Vice President, Maroš Šefčovič, about this. He recognises, he's committed to making sure that the Belfast Agreement works in the interests of all of Northern Ireland's people, and he recognises, therefore, that we do need a reset. And I'm looking forward to working with him and the parties in Northern Ireland to help address the problems that people in Northern Ireland have identified.
What does this episode say about the European Union's attitude to Brexit? Are you one of those who says this shows you we were right to leave?
Well, I've always argued that we were right to leave, but I also think it's important that we have good relations with our friends and neighbours. And that's why I wanted to make sure that we can do everything we can after the mistake that was made yesterday to make sure that we can work together. Ultimately, it's in all of our interests to see companies honour their contracts, promises kept, the rule of law respected, and friendship and cooperation between nations advance. Now, Britain, as a sovereign nation, is playing its role once more as a leader in standing up for those values, and we want to be alongside our friends and our neighbours in the European Union in pushing that agenda forward.
Do you think they've behaved, and you talked about a mistake, do you think they've behaved totally unreasonably because they're annoyed that the UK seems to be further ahead in terms of the timetable with vaccinations?
Well, when friends make mistakes, the most important thing to do is to help everyone to get back onto the right track. So, yes, a mistake was made yesterday, but I think it's also important that we recognise that while we must prioritise the vaccination of British citizens, it's also in our interests to support our friends and neighbours with their vaccine programme. And we will do that consistent with making sure that contracts are honoured, promises are kept, and that UK citizens are vaccinated first.
What did you think of President Macron's claim that one of the vaccines doesn't work for over 65s?
Well, when it comes to looking at how effective vaccines are, I think all of us will want to look at the scientific evidence. And I'm confident on the basis of what scientists in this country and elsewhere have said that our vaccination programme is the right programme administered in the right way for the right reasons.
2 days ago, you said Sir Desmond Swayne should apologise and retract his remarks about vaccines and perhaps suggested that some disciplinary action should be taken against him. That hasn't happened. Why has Sir Desmond been let off with no action being taken against him?
Watch this space.
What's going to happen then?
Well, I can't preempt any decision-making, but I think it's important that the processes that the Conservative Party has are in place in order to make sure, as I'm sure he will, that Sir Desmond apologises and recognises that he made a mistake.
When you say watch this space, are you expecting the Chief Whip to take some action?
I won't say any more than I've just said.
You're a former Chief Whip.
Yes, I am, but as a result of that, I know that you leave these matters to the appropriate people.